All right, so I actually got a little bit of good news here for you guys, as we may be heading for one of, if not the single largest strikes in the history, at least the modern history of the United States of America. And this one is specifically centering around the Teamsters that are representing UPS workers. So I'm going to give you just a basic breakdown in terms of like what the disagreements have been, how they ended up at the point where they needed to go on strike in the first place, and just sort of like what they're trying to argue. So here from Axios, UPS driver strike looms after labor negotiations break down. So what are they talking about here? They say labor talks between UPS and its unionized drivers and warehouse workers broke down early Wednesday, with both sides accusing the other of walking away from the negotiating table. They say why it matters. If no deal is reached, a strike could throw the supply chain into chaos, disrupt the U.S. economy, and push customers towards rival shipping companies. And they say that the contract that they are currently still under ends on July 31st, which basically means we have, 3 weeks or so, a little bit over 3 weeks for them to potentially get another deal on the table. Then it would have to be obviously ratified by the unions and the union workers. And if we do that, or they do that before that July 31st deadline, the strike won't happen. But as of what I've seen so far, it seems like this was sort of kind of like the last round of negotiations and that they were just at a total stalemate. So it looks like this is if I had to guess, pretty likely to happen. Now, another thing I just want to mention here, just in terms of like how corporate media constantly frames these issues whenever workers decide to go on strike. I mean, look at the rhetoric here. The first sentence, right, after they give like the basic intro of what's happening, right? They say if no deal is reached, a strike could throw supply chain into chaos and disrupt the U.S. economy. And it's like, well, yeah, sure, that probably would happen. Again, this is going to be potentially a massive historic strike on our hands. But also, like, they're framing this as if this is the problem of the workers, or as if this is the fault of the workers and not the high-paid executives and the shareholders that work at UPS, right? I mean, they're just putting this all on the shoulders of the workers. And this is something you've seen, whether it's in the U.S. and it's strikes that are happening here, or even in other countries as well. I noticed this during recent strikes over in the UK, where you had this guy Mick Lynch, who's just an absolute legend. If you want to go see some of his highlights, go look up Mick Lynch interacting with British media, and he was just absolutely killing it as a union leader. But they were using the same rhetoric against them, and it's like, why are you causing all of these disruptions? You're hurting the economy, you're preventing people from getting the things they need or getting to work on time and all of that shit. And it's like, yeah, this is the whole point of having a union. This is the whole point of being able to use collective worker power to go on strike, is because there is going to be economic harm. There is going to be significant disruption. What does that tell you? Does it tell you that the union workers are big bad meanies? No, it tells you that they deserve pretty much the entirety of what they're asking for, because they have a lot of value both for this company and also for the broader US economy, right? So you should lean into that and say, well, if they're so valuable, then why are you bashing them? Why are you not willing to negotiate with them? Why are you putting this as if it's their fault? No, they are valuable workers and they deserve the asks that they are trying to make right now. So they continue. They say, the big picture, the Teamsters, who represent more than 340,000 UPS workers nationwide, said that UPS walked away from the bargaining table after putting forward an unacceptable offer that was rejected by the Teamsters. And UPS, of course, refuted this and basically said the UPS union walked away from the table. At the end of the day, again, it doesn't necessarily matter. This is on the shoulders of the executives on the management side of this equation in order to get a deal done that the workers are going to be happy with. There is no reason why these workers should be forced to work in the conditions that they are subjected to. Okay, they should be, on the winning end of this bargain, if anything, and I'll show you why here in a second, with the absurd profit margins that a company like UPS gets on an annual basis. So they could definitely afford to give these workers what they're asking for. But they finish off here. They say the negotiations have been held up by disagreements over pay and cost of living increases. The union argues that salaries haven't reflected the large profits UPS enjoyed in recent years. And they say the Teamsters also say UPS hasn't done enough to reward workers who risk their health to deliver packages during the pandemic. And so I'm going to put this thread down in the description along with the rest of my sources if you want to go and follow along with sort of what the Teamsters are saying about this. I mean, it seems like there's a lot of energy around this. They voted based on on whether or not to authorize this strike. And as you can see here from a different Axios article, 97% of its UPS members voted to approve the strike. So clearly this is something where it's not like 50-50. 50-50. Should we do it? Should we not do it? Should we accept the contract on the table? No, it looks like the overwhelming majority of them said this contract is absolute dog shit. We should go on strike in order to get, our demands met for better pay, better working conditions, better benefits, etc. Right? So 97% voted to approve the strike. And they continue here, and part of this I just found like absolutely hilarious, just again based on how they frame these kinds of articles. But they say negotiations began on April 17th on the National Master Agreement as the union pursues a new 5-year deal that would guarantee raises, more full-time positions, and end to forced overtime and the demise of the company's 2-tier wage system. So this was a big sticking point, and it looks like they were successful, at least from what I've seen in terms of getting this extraction. But the 2-tiered wage system is basically just a way to try to divide these workers. You have some people who are somewhat part-time, some people who are full-time delivery drivers, and they have them on completely different like pay rates. It's like $5 less per hour or something for people who are part-time. So it looks like they've managed to get at least some success on that one. But the rest of these, I mean, this is just basic shit, right? Guaranteed raises, especially with the current inflationary period that we're having right now, seems pretty reasonable. More full-time positions and an end to forced overtime. So, I mean, again, very reasonable demands here. But here's where they get the kicker, right? They say UPS drivers already scored a win, a big win at the bargaining table when the company agreed to provide most, not all, most of its delivery vehicles with air conditioning. Okay, this is what Axios wants you to believe is a win. This is a big win. Now, granted, it is a win in the sense that, like, what the fuck were we doing, or what the fuck was UPS doing, allowing their drivers, and I remember seeing stories about this a couple months ago in, like, the Texas heat, or in all of these different various states, especially down south, where we have been seeing, like, record heat waves, right? And they're driving in these trucks, and you see these videos of them, and if you actually, like, measure the temperature, it's even hotter inside the truck by a factor of like 5 to 10 degrees. So we're talking about like people having to go on these long delivery routes, right? Where they're delivering for hours and hours and hours on end. It's 90, 95 degrees outside. It's 110 degrees inside the goddamn UPS truck, and they do not even have air conditioning, okay? And so they got air conditioning in some of the trucks, right? Which is like, okay, thank you for not deliberately trying to kill your workers, I guess. But it seems like, again, they deserve much more than what they are talking about there. But just to give away perspective in terms of why the Teamsters are saying that UPS can afford to give these workers what they are demanding, here from CNN, UPS reports record profit but forecasts a slower 2023. So what are these record profits? UPS reported a record profit for 2022 just last year as its revenue reached $100 billion for the first time since its founding. Okay, so there's like a contradiction going on here, right? The company simultaneously wants to, go to their shareholders and brag about the fact that we're seeing these historic profits. We just had a record year in 2022, $100 billion in operating revenue for the year, right? And then they also want to turn around and tell the workers, oopsie, sorry, we can barely afford to give you guys air conditioning in the trucks, and we can't afford to give you like a $5 bonus for some of the people who are on the lower tier of this 2-tiered wage system, and we can't afford guaranteed, cost of living raises and all of that stuff. I mean, it's just entirely bullshit. So listen, at the end of the day, 100% solidarity with these UPS drivers, everybody that's shown solidarity with the Teamsters right now. That's what it's going to take. And just in like a broader scopes way, this is again why unions are so powerful, because if you didn't have a union that was representing these UPS drivers, right, they would have no actual legitimate power to get any of the demands that they're asking for in this new contract, let alone getting some of the air conditioning in their goddamn trucks, right? So the power here comes from this collective unionized force of workers who, instead of going individually to their manager or to their boss or whatever the case may be and having to get on their knees and beg and plead for something that the manager is going to basically spit at, okay, instead you organize with your fellow workers, you have that collective power, you have legal protections that are put in place, and so you can authorize something like a strike like this where you then put pressure on the company. You're costing them economic values, as they said in that Axios article, potentially driving customers to other competitors and stuff. That is all factored in to the decision making of the capitalist enterprise, right? And so that's, just one of those ways you can sort of counterbalance the authoritarian structure of these corporations, which is what it is at a fundamental level under capitalism. So I think, again, it's just a great reminder in terms of why we should be joining unions. If you work at a place that can, form a union, try to go about the beginning processes of doing that. There's plenty of resources online for how to do that, how to protect yourself and your fellow workers. And, if you already have a union at your workplace, then make sure to join that. And of course, show solidarity with these workers workers, because it's not even just about the UPS drivers in this one instance. As we all know, states like, for example, that have don't have right to work laws that are basically just anti-union laws, they have on average, not just at those companies, higher wages, better benefits, better working conditions, because if you lift up people who are within these various unions, it has reverberating effects throughout the rest of the economy that could affect your bottom line, that could affect my bottom line. And so, again, solidarity with them. I hope that they get every single goddamn thing they're asking for.
Everyone is saying GoodPoliticGuy has the best politic. Believe me, no one does it like him. Believe me, everyone is saying